Elite Facts presents
8 most expensive weapons from history that only the rich can afford. So as it is, self-defense weapons can be expensive. Try walking into your local store to buy a weapon for under a couple of $100. Most weapons aren't cheap, but at least they can be affordable. As you'd probably expect, the elite only want the best of the best when it comes to weapons, especially if they hold historical value. Okay, so obviously they're not going to use historical weapons for their intended use, or maybe they will, depending on how crazy the buyer is. But even if they were to use it, to quote Peter from Dawn of the Dead, the only person who could miss with this gun is the sucker with the bread to buy it. Anyway, enough rambling. Here are 8 of the most expensive weapons from history that only the rich can afford. Oh, keep in mind that for this list, we will be leaving off vehicle-based weapons and explosives. 8. Wyatt Earps Colt .45 caliber revolver, $225,000. Let's start the list with Wyatt Earp's personal .45 caliber revolver. For those of you who may not know, Wyatt Earp is one of the most well-known lawmen of all time. Earp worked as the deputy sheriff in Tombstone, Arizona. He was pretty much the living embodiment of the Wild West man. It has been well documented that Earp lived a wild life and worked many trades in his day, including gambler, bouncer, saloon keeper, and a boxing referee. During his time as a lawman, Earp participated in one of the most infamous shootouts of all time, the gunfight at the OK Corral. During this shootout, Earp, along with 3 other lawmen, took down 3 outlaws within the space of 30 seconds. This Colt .45 revolver was most likely the weapon used during this infamous gunfight, which explains why it holds quite the hefty price tag.
7.
The .44 caliber that was used against Jesse James, $350,000. While we're on the subject of the Wild West, we think it's best we talk about the most notorious outlaw of them all, Jesse James. Jesse James was an American outlaw known for running a vicious gang who carried out many bank and train robberies during the mid to late 1800s. Over the course of his life, he earned legendary status, as he is one of the most infamous figures of the Wild West. It has been said that James and his gang robbed over 20 banks and stole around $200,000 during their heyday. James eventually met his end by one of his fellow gang members while his back was turned in order to collect the bounty the government had placed on his head. The .44 caliber we're talking about is most likely the gun that fired those fatal rounds. In 2003, the pistol went up for auction and was sold to an anonymous bidder for the price of $350,000.
6.
Teddy Roosevelt's double-barreled shotgun, $862,500. Moving away from the Wild West, let's talk now about the 26th President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt served his term in office from 1901 to 1909, and it's been well documented that Teddy Roosevelt was an avid hunter, and this shotgun was made by the Fox Gun Company for Roosevelt to take with him on an African safari in 1909. In a thank you letter from Roosevelt to the Fox Gun Company, he stated that it was the most beautiful gun he had ever seen. The shotgun was originally sold by the Roosevelt family in 1974, then was eventually sold again in 2000, and then in 2010, the shotgun was sold again for a massive profit as it sold for $862,500.
5.
Gold-inlaid Colt Model 1849 pocket revolver, $1.1 million. Okay, now this revolver doesn't exactly hold any historical significance, but the price of the item, as well as the date it was created, definitely warrants its spot on this list. The Colt Model 1849 pocket revolver was derived from the Patterson model, but was meant to be more streamlined and transportable. It was also the most widely produced percussion pistol Colt ever made. It has been noted that the Model 1849 was very reliable and well made. This was the main reason why it was so popular during its time on the market. Now you're probably thinking, well, what makes this particular gun so special if it was so popular back then? Well, the reason this model is so special is because it was inlaid with gold. The beautiful craftsmanship shown on this Model 1849 caused the price to skyrocket, bringing $1.1 million.
4.
Winchester Model 1886, $1.26 million. Next up, we have yet another popular gun from the 1800s, The Winchester Model 1886 was almost as popular, if not more so, than the previously mentioned Colt Model 1849. Recently, a Winchester rifle fetched more than $1 million at auction for a couple of reasons. For one, it was the very first Winchester model produced that year. That alone pretty much sums up why it's expensive. But what's even more important than that is that this particular Winchester model was gifted to Captain Henry W. Lawton, the man responsible for the tracking and capture of Geronimo.
3,
Presentation sword, $1.67 million. Now, okay, before you all go mental about the fact that we're including a sword on this list, we didn't say swords weren't allowed. Now, with that being said, back in 1864, Ulysses S. Grant was presented with a silver and gold diamond-encrusted sword by, quote, the grateful citizens of Kentucky after his assumption as the General-in-Chief of the United States Army, according to Heritage Auction Gallery's curator, Dennis Lowe. In 2007, the sword was purchased for a huge $1,673,000 at an auction.
2,
George Washington's saddle pistols, $1,986,000. Once again, returning back to firearms. This set of saddle pistols were originally given to George Washington by his French ally, Marquis de Lafayette, and were used by Washington through the entirety of the Revolutionary War. This set of pistols featured beautiful gold inlays and detailed Rococo carvings that make the pistols more art than weapon. After Washington's passing, these pistols would eventually fall into the possession of President Andrew Jackson, who took extremely good care of them for most of his life before eventually returning them back to Washington's family. In 2002, the pistols were sold at a Christie's Americana auction for a record-breaking $1,986,000. The buyer was the Richard King Mellon Foundation, who then donated the pistols to the Fort Ligonier Historic Site and Museum just outside of Pittsburgh.
1,
Napoleons Sword, $6.5 million. And finally, we conclude our list with another historical sword. This curved steel blade holds the Guinness World Record for most expensive weapon ever sold at auction. Wow, that is crazy. But why is it so expensive? Well, the reason for its high price tag is because it once belonged to Napoleon Bonaparte, who brought it with him to the Battle of Marengo in 1800. The weapon, which features an ebony and gold handle, sold for $6.5 million during a 2007 auction in Fontainebleau, France. And that's our list. Did we leave any out? Let us know in the comments below. Please remember to subscribe and tap the bell button to be notified when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.